My daughter-in-law calls me unhygienic. She makes me eat separately, and she won't even let me touch anything in my own house. Yeah, that's how my story starts. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not confused. And I'm definitely not fragile. I'm 72 years old, and I built this home with my late husband from scratch. I raised my son in it. I cooked every Thanksgiving dinner in that kitchen. I scrubbed those floors on my knees when we couldn't afford help. And now I'm told I'm unsanitary. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe because what I'm about to tell you, honey, you won't believe how this ends. It didn't start loud. It never does. At first, Clara, my daughter-in-law, just made little comments. Mom, maybe don't touch the salad with your hands. Mom, did you wash properly? Mom, these days infections spread so easily, you know? She would smile when she said it. That tight little smile. The kind that looks sweet but feels sharp. I ignored it. I told myself she was young, health-conscious, modern. Maybe I was old-fashioned. Maybe she meant well. But then she started separating my things. My towel? Different hook. My plate? Different cabinet. My mug? Not with the others. No, mine stayed on the far corner shelf like it carried a disease. And one night at dinner, she placed my food on a smaller plate. Not the usual china. A plain one. Plastic. I looked at her. She didn't even blink. It's just more hygienic this way, Mom, she said casually. You know, with older people. Older people. Like I was a category. A contamination risk. My son Daniel barely looked up from his phone. Yeah, Mom, Clara just worries. Worries. About what? That I would infect the silverware? That I would poison the house I paid for? Oh, but it didn't stop there. One afternoon, I reached for Lily's backpack, my granddaughter's, and Clara rushed across the room like I had grabbed a live wire. Please don't touch her school stuff, she snapped. Kids pick up germs from everywhere. Let's not mix things. Let's not mix things. She started wiping doorknobs after I touched them, spraying disinfectant on the couch cushion after I stood up. Once, I heard her whisper to Daniel in the kitchen, thinking I couldn't hear. She doesn't realize how unhygienic she is. It's uncomfortable. Unhygienic. That word stuck to me like something dirty I couldn't wash off. I showered twice a day after that. Scrubbed my hands until my skin cracked. I even Googled elderly hygiene problems at 2 in the morning just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't. I was clean. I was careful. I was aware. But Clara? She wasn't trying to protect anyone. She was trying to erase me. She moved my armchair because it blocked airflow. She threw away my old kitchen sponge because it looked contaminated. She stopped letting me cook. Said I might cross-contaminate something. And the worst part? She started giving me food separately. Different utensils. Different tray. Like I was a patient in quarantine. One evening, I finally asked her calmly, Clara, do you truly believe I'm unclean? She paused. Then she shrugged. It's not personal, Mom. It's just reality. Reality. Ah, that word. I nodded that night. I didn't argue. But something inside me shifted. Because here's what Clara didn't know. This house. The deed isn't in Daniel's name. It's in mine. And she thought she was humiliating a weak-old woman. But what she was really doing was pushing a woman who had survived widowhood, bankruptcy scares, cancer treatments, and 30 years of hospital nursing into remembering exactly who she was. And honey, when I finally decided to stop feeling guilty, when I stopped apologizing for existing, when I stopped shrinking inside my own home, Clara had no idea what was coming next. And the day I decided to take back control, that was the day her hygienic boundaries became her biggest mistake. Because if she thought I wasn't allowed to touch anything, well, soon, she wouldn't be allowed to touch anything either. And trust me, when I tell you what I did next, you're going to understand why she never called me unhygienic again. You know what hurts more than being called unhygienic? It's when your own son starts believing it. Let me tell you about the night I realized this wasn't just Clara's cruelty anymore. It was becoming Daniel's silence. It was a Sunday. Family dinner night. Used to be my favorite thing in the world. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Lily laughing at the table. Daniel sneaking extra gravy when Clara wasn't looking. That night, I walked into the kitchen like I always had for 25 years. Instinct. Muscle memory. My house. My stove. Clara stepped in front of me. Not aggressively. Not loudly. Just enough to block me. "Mom, why don't you sit tonight?" she said sweetly. "I've already sanitized everything." Sanitized everything. Like I was a walking biohazard. I froze. "I was just going to stir the potatoes," I said quietly. Her smile tightened. "I already did. It's better if we don't mix handling." Mix handling. Daniel looked up briefly from setting the table. "Yeah, Mom. Just relax." Relax. So I sat. And then I watched her. She wore gloves. Gloves. In my kitchen. And every time I reached for something, a spoon, a napkin, the salt, she subtly moved it first. It wasn't loud humiliation. It was precise. Calculated. Like she wanted me to feel it, but not accuse her of it. At dinner, she placed everyone's plates down one by one. Daniel's. Lily's. Hers. And then mine. On a tray. Separate. Different fork. Different knife. I looked at it. Daniel noticed. "Mom, it's just easier this way," he muttered. "Clara's just careful." Careful. I nodded slowly. And then Clara said something that changed everything. She laughed lightly and told Lily, "When people get older, their immune systems weaken, so we have to keep things extra clean. Right, Mom?" Right, Mom. In front of my granddaughter. Turning me into a lesson. A condicionalità. I swallowed my pride along with my food. That night, after everyone went to bed, I stood alone in the kitchen. I opened the cabinet where my dishes used to be. Empty. She had moved them to the lower shelf. Out of sight. I bent down slowly, knees aching, and pulled out the plain plate she'd assigned me. Plastic. Cheap. Disposable looking. I ran my fingers across it. In my own home. The house I paid off 10 years ago. The mortgage in my name. The property taxes in my name. Clara didn't know that I never transferred ownership after my husband died. Daniel assumed it would eventually be his. Clara definitely assumed it already was. And that assumption? That was her first mistake. The second mistake came the following week. I overheard her on the phone. "I don't know how much longer I can deal with it," she whispered. "It's like living with a hygiene hazard. And the house situation. Well, once it's legally ours, things will change." Once it's legally ours. Ah, there it was. It was never about germs. It was about territory. Control. Space. She wasn't trying to keep things clean. She was preparing for my removal. I didn't confront her. No. I did something smarter. I called my attorney. Quietly. The same attorney who helped me update my will years ago. I scheduled a meeting for the following Tuesday. No one knew. That weekend, Clara escalated. I walked into the living room and found my favorite armchair gone. Gone. It had been replaced with one of her modern beige chairs. "Where's my chair?" I asked. She didn't look up from her laptop. "Oh, I donated it. The fabric was old. Probably full of bacteria." Daniel didn't object. He didn't even ask me first. That's when something inside me stopped hurting and started hardening. You can insult me. You can separate my plate. You can wipe down door handles after I touch them. But you don't donate my furniture in my house. That night, I went into my bedroom and opened the small metal lockbox under my bed. Inside were the original property papers. My husband's signature. Mine. The updated deed. Sole ownership. Margaret Ellis. Me. I held it in my hands and smiled for the first time in months. Because Clara thought I was shrinking. She thought humiliation would make me weak. But what it really did was wake me up. And the attorney meeting? Oh honey, that's when the real plan began. Because if she didn't want me touching anything, if she thought I didn't belong in my own kitchen, then I was going to show her exactly who owned every inch of that house. And the way I did it. Let's just say, Clara never saw it coming. You want to know the exact moment I stopped feeling guilty? It wasn't when she gave me a separate plate. It wasn't when she wiped the couch after I stood up. It was Tuesday morning, sitting across from my attorney, when he looked at me and said, "Margaret, this house is legally yours. No one can remove you. In fact, you're the only one who has authority here." Ah, those words. They felt like oxygen. I hadn't realized how suffocated I'd been. I sat there in his office, sunlight cutting across polished wood, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt grounded. "I want everything airtight," I told him. "No confusión. No assumptions." He nodded. Calm. Professional. We updated everything. My will. Revised. The house. Placed into a living trust. Controlled solely by me. Access rights? Removed. Power of attorney? Revoked. Beneficiary? Lily. Directly. Protected. Not Clara. Not even Daniel, technically. My granddaughter. The only one who never treated me like contamination. When I signed the final page, my hand didn't shake. It steadied. Because humiliation can either crush you or clarify you. And honey, I was crystal clear. I drove home slowly that afternoon, watching my own house come into view. The porch. The white shutters. The flower beds I planted 20 years ago. Mine. When I walked inside, Clara was in the kitchen, wearing gloves again. Ah. She looked up. "Oh, you're back." Not "how was your day?" Not "did everything go okay?" Just that tone. That subtle irritation that I still existed. Daniel wasn't home. Perfect. I placed my purse on the counter, deliberately. She reached for disinfectant. I saw it. I waited. She hesitated. Then she sprayed the counter. In front of me. And wiped. Without saying a word. That used to break my heart. That day? It didn't. "Clara," I said calmly. She stiffened slightly. She didn't like when I used her name with steadiness. "Yes. I need to speak with you and Daniel tonight. After dinner." She frowned. "About?" "Oh," I said softly. "About boundaries." Ah. That word hit her like cold water. That evening, Daniel sat on the couch scrolling his phone. Clara perched beside him, posture perfect, arms crossed. I stood. I didn't sit lower than them this time. "I went to see my attorney today," I began. Daniel looked confused. Clara's eyes sharpened. "For what?" Daniel asked. "To review my estate." Clara leaned forward slightly. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," I said gently. "Something has been wrong for a while." Silence. I continued. "This house belongs to me. Legally. Solely." Daniel blinked. "Well, yeah, Mom. Eventually it'll." "No." Interrupta. Calmly. "Not eventually. Now. It is mine. It has always been mine." Clara's jaw tightened. "I've updated all legal documents," I said. "Revoked prior access permissions. Adjusted beneficiary structures. Secured my assets." Daniel looked overwhelmed. Clara went very still. "What are you implying?" she asked. "I'm not implying anything," I said. "I'm clarifying." I stepped closer. "In this home, I will not be treated as unhygienic. I will not eat separately. I will not have my belongings moved or discarded. And no one will sanitize surfaces after I touch them." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Clara forced a small laugh. "Margaret, you're being dramatic." Ah. There it was again. Dramatic. Fragile. Confused. I looked directly at her. "No, Clara. I am being clear." Silence thickened. "And if my presence makes you uncomfortable," I added gently, "you are free to find other living arrangements." Daniel's head snapped toward me. "Mom, what?" I didn't raise my voice. I am no longer adjusting myself to avoid someone else's discomfort in my own home. Clara's face flushed. "You can't just threaten us like that." I tilted my head slightly. "It's not a threat. It's a fact." The air changed. She realized something. The control she thought she had? It was imaginary. And for the first time since she started calling me unhygienic. She looked unsure. Daniel looked torn. "Mom, this is our home too," he said weakly. I softened my tone. "But not my position. You are my son. You are always welcome. But respect is not optional here." Clara stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're twisting everything. No. Y replica calmly. I'm remembering everything. And that's when I saw it. Not guilt. Not shame. Fear. Because she had spent months trying to make me feel small. And now she was realizing. I wasn't shrinking anymore. But this wasn't revenge yet. Oh no. This was only the beginning. Because what Clara didn't understand was that humiliation builds something inside you. Something patient. Something observant. And I had been observing for a very long time. And the next move I made didn't just set boundaries. It shifted the entire power in that house. And when Clara tried to test me after that conversation, that's when I gave her a lesson she would never forget. You would think after that conversation Clara would slow down. You would think she'd feel embarrassed. You would think she'd stop calling me unhygienic. No. People who thrive on control don't back down quietly. They escalate. The very next morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw it. A box. On the counter. Labeled in thick black marker. Mom's utensils. Separate. Fork. Knife. Spoon. Cup. All placed inside like I was a child at summer camp. I stood there for a long moment. The audacity of it. Daniel had already left for work. Of course. Clara was by the sink, pretending to rinse fruit. Oh, she said casually. I figured this would make things easier for everyone. Easier? For who? I asked softly. She shrugged. For hygiene. I walked to the box. Slowly. Deliberately. I lifted the fork. Cheap stainless steel. Different from the rest of the set I bought 15 years ago. You went shopping, I observed. She smiled thinly. It's just practical. Practical. I set the fork back down gently. Then I did something she didn't expect. I laughed. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just softly. That unsettled her more than shouting ever could. What's funny? She asked sharply. Oh, nothing, I replied. It's just interesting how bold people become in houses that aren't theirs. Silence. Her jaw tightened. This again, she snapped. We are family. Yes, I said calmly. Which is why this is so disappointing. She rolled her eyes and reached for the disinfectant spray again. And right there in front of me, she sprayed the counter where my purse had rested. Slowly. Deliberately. Like a message. Message received. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I walked to the hallway closet instead. Opened it. And removed something I hadn't touched in years. The framed original deed copy. I brought it into the kitchen and set it on the table. Clara froze. What is that? Documentation. I said simply. She didn't approach it. Didn't touch it. Just stared. You keep talking about hygiene, I continued gently. Let's talk about boundaries instead. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting. No one is trying to disrespect you. I looked at the labeled box again. At the cheap utensils. At the spray bottle. You labeled me, I said quietly. Her expression flickered. It's just organization. No. Y correcta sufli. It's segregation. That word landed heavy. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. Because deep down, she knew. I walked to the sink. Turned on the water. Washed my hands slowly. Dried them carefully. Then I opened the main utensil drawer. The one with the full matching silverware set. And I picked up a fork. She inhaled sharply. Margaret. I looked at her. Calm. Steady. If I am so unhygienic, I said. Then you shouldn't be living under my roof. Her face flushed. You're threatening to kick us out over forks? I tilted my head slightly. No. I'm correcting behavior. She laughed nervously. You can't just throw your son out. I'm not throwing him out, I replied. I'm giving you a choice. That's when Daniel walked in. Perfect timing. What's going on? He asked. Clara immediately shifted into wounded mode. Your mother is being unreasonable again. There it was. Again. Daniel looked tired. Mom, can we not do this? I faced him calmly. Daniel, do you believe I am unhygienic? He hesitated. That hesitation? That pause. That was the crack. Clara jumped in. It's not about belief, it's about precaution. Daniel, I repeated gently, do you believe I am unclean? Silence stretched. He shifted uncomfortably. I just think Clara's trying to keep things organized. Ah. So he wouldn't say it. But he wouldn't defend me either. That was all I needed. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said. For what? He asked. For clarifying where you stand. Clara smirked slightly, thinking she'd won. She hadn't. That evening, after they went upstairs, I made one final phone call. To my attorney. I'm ready to proceed, I said calmly. Proceed with what? He asked. With formal occupancy documentation. Because here's the thing Clara never considered. When someone lives in your home without a lease, they have no legal protection. And when that home is placed into a trust, with defined residency clauses, things change very quickly. The next day, I printed something. 3 pages. Clean. Clear. Simple. And I left it on the kitchen table, right next to her little box labeled, Mom's Utensils. And when Clara read it, when she realized I wasn't bluffing, when she understood that she might actually have to pack her perfectly sanitized belongings, that was the first time, the very first time, she stopped calling me unhygienic. But oh honey, that was only the beginning of her panic. Because once control slips from someone like Clara, they don't surrender. They scramble. And the way she tried to fight back next, that's when things got real. You ever watch someone realize the ground under them isn't solid anymore? It's subtle at first. A twitch in the jaw. A pause that's just a second too long. That's what Clara looked like when she saw the papers on the kitchen table. 3 pages. Clean. Official. Neatly clipped. Right beside her little box labeled, Mom's Utensils. Daniel picked them up first. What's this? He asked. Clara leaned over his shoulder. Her confidence lasted exactly 5 seconds. Then her face changed. It was an occupancy agreement. Prepared by my attorney. Clear terms. Clear boundaries. The property, owned by Margaret Ellis, permitted temporary residence to Daniel Ellis only. Not Clara. Not automatically. Conditions included respectful conduct toward the property owner. Violation of conduct? Revocation of occupancy. 30 days to vacate. Signed and notarized. Ah. The air shifted. You're joking, Clara said flatly. I sipped my tea. No. Daniel looked stunned. Mom, what is this? It's structure, I said calmly. Since hygiene rules were introduced without discussion, I thought we could formalize all house rules. Clara's cheeks flushed red. You can't legally exclude a spouse. I can restrict residency in my privately owned property, I replied evenly. Especially if I feel unsafe or disrespected. Unsafe. That word hit Daniel harder than anything else. Mom, do you feel unsafe? He asked quietly. I held his gaze. When someone constantly implies you are contaminated in your own home, yes. It begins to feel unsafe. Clara scoffed. Oh my God, this is insane. I was trying to keep things clean. No, I said gently. You were trying to establish dominance. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Why are we escalating this? He muttered. Because you let it escalate months ago, I thought. But I didn't say it like that. Instead, I stood. Walked to the kitchen sink. Turned the faucet on. Washed my hands slowly. Dried them carefully. Then deliberately, opened the main utensil drawer, and picked up one of the original forks. The matching set. I placed it on my plate. Clara watched like I had committed a crime. From now on, I said calmly, I will eat from the same dishes as everyone else. No labeled boxes. No segregación. She crossed her arms. And if I don't agree? I looked at her. You have 30 days. Ah. There it was. The shift. The power she thought she had? Gone. But here's what I learned working 30 years as a nurse. When someone feels control slipping, they don't retreat. They lash out. That night, Clara didn't spray the counters. She didn't wipe the couch. She didn't label anything. Instead, she started whispering. I heard her in the bedroom upstairs. She's manipulating you, Daniel. This is elder paranoia. Paranoia. Fragile. Confused. Unhygienic. See the pattern? Daniel sounded uncertain. She wouldn't go this far without reason. Clara's voice dropped. You know how older people get. They imagine slights. They dramatize. I stood in the hallway listening. Not hurt. Not shocked. Just observing. Because something clicked. This was never about cleanliness. It was about positioning. If she could paint me as unstable, then eventually, she could justify removing me. Maybe even legally. But she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated how carefully I pay attention. The next morning, I did something she didn't expect. I invited Lily over for breakfast. Just the two of us. No Clara. No Daniel. When Lily arrived, she hugged me tight. Grandma, are you okay? She asked softly. I smiled. I'm stronger than I look, sweetheart. She nodded. I know. And that right there? That was my anchor. Because Clara could try to isolate me. She could try to undermine me. But she couldn't erase the truth. And the truth was this. I was not weak. I was not dirty. I was not confused. And I was done apologizing for existing. Later that afternoon, Clara approached me differently. No sarcasm. No esmirks. Just quiet calculation. Margaret, she said carefully. Let's talk like adults. Now we were adults. Now she wanted calm. I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat. No gloves this time. Interesting. You're overreacting, she began. But I don't want things to get ugly. Too late for that, honey. Aloud I said, then stop treating me like contamination. She sighed dramatically. I never meant it personally. Intent does not erase impact, I replied. She looked surprised I used that phrase. I just think shared living requires compromise. Yes, I said. Compromise goes both ways. She stared at me, measuring, calculating, and then she asked the question that told me everything. What would it take for you to tear up those papers? There it was. Not apology, not reflection, negotiation. Because now she knew. The house wasn't slipping from me. It was slipping from her. And the answer I gave her next? That's when she realized this wasn't a bluff. And when she reacted to it, well, that's when she showed her true colors in a way Daniel couldn't ignore anymore. You know what's fascinating? When someone finally realizes they don't control you anymore, their mask slips. That afternoon when Clara asked, what would it take for you to tear up those papers? She wasn't asking for peace. She was asking for leverage. I looked at her calmly. It would take respect, I said. She blinked. Define respect. Like it was a contract term. Respect, I said evenly, means no more separate dishes. No more disinfecting after I touch something. No more implying I'm unhygienic. No more moving my belongings. No more whispering about my mental state. Her jaw tightened. That's dramatic. No. Iraplia. It's specific. Silence. She leaned back, folding her arms. You know what this really is, she said. You can't handle not being the center of the house anymore. There it was. Projection. I didn't raise my voice. This house was never about attention. It was about dignity. She laughed under her breath. You're making Daniel choose. No, I said gently. You did that when you started treating me like contamination. Her eyes hardened. You're twisting everything. Am I? I asked softly. Then tell me something honestly, Clara. She hesitated. Do you believe I am unhygienic? There it was again. The question she always dodged. She looked away. It's not about belief. Yes or no? I interrupted quietly. Her silence answered for her. And in that silence, I saw something shift. Not guilt. Not shame. Resentment. Because she didn't like being cornered by truth. She stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. If you're so miserable, maybe you should consider assisted living. There it was. The real plan. Subtle before. Now spoken. I felt something inside me go very still. Assisted living? I repeated calmly. Yes, she said quickly. Somewhere clean. Professional. Structured. It would be better for everyone. Better for everyone. Meaning better for her. Daniel walked in right then. Perfect timing again. What's going on? He asked, sensing the tension. Clara jumped in immediately. I was just suggesting options for your mom. You know, long term. Daniel frowned. What kind of options? She shrugged. Places where she'd be more comfortable. More hygienic. I turned to Daniel slowly. Your wife just suggested I leave my own home for assisted living because I make her uncomfortable. Daniel looked stunned. Clara, did you say that? She rolled her eyes. You're twisting it. I'm thinking practically. She needs structure. I need structure? I repeated softly. Yes, she snapped. You forget things. You misplace items. You overreact. You're clearly not thinking rationally. Now we were escalating. Daniel's face changed. Clara, that's not fair. Oh really? She shot back. You don't see it because you're blinded by guilt. Silence filled the room like smoke. I stood up slowly. Daniel, I said calmly. Do you believe I am incapable of managing my own life? He didn't hesitate this time. No. That word hit Clara like a slap. She turned to him sharply. So you're choosing her over me? And there it was. The ultimatum. The manipulation. Daniel looked exhausted. This isn't about choosing, he said quietly. It's about what's right. Clara laughed bitterly. Oh please. She's playing you. She's trying to push me out. I met her gaze steadily. I am not pushing you out. I am refusing to be pushed. That landed. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not fragile. Not confused. Not apologetic. Firm. And that scared her more than anything. She grabbed her purse. This is insane, she muttered. You're turning this house into a battlefield. No, I said softly. I'm ending the quiet war you started. She stormed upstairs. Daniel stood there, shaken. Mom. I didn't know she felt that way. I did. I replied gently. He looked at me carefully. Did she really make you feel like you didn't belong here? I held his gaze. Yes. That honesty broke something in him. He sank into a chair. I thought she was just being careful. She was being strategic, I said. Upstairs, drawers slammed. Closet doors banged. Not packing. Just anger. Control slipping. Daniel looked up at me. What do you want me to do? That question? That was everything. Because for the first time, he wasn't dismissing me. He was asking. I want peace, I said. But not at the cost of my dignity. He nodded slowly. I need to talk to her. Yes, I replied. You do. He went upstairs. Voices rose. Not screaming, but sharp. Accusations. Defensiveness. And then, something unexpected. I heard Clara say, you think she won't push you out too? Once she's done with me. Ah. So that's how she framed it. Divide and conquer. Make him afraid. But she didn't know something. I had already prepared for that possibility. Because the trust? The updated documents? They protected Daniel's residency, as long as he upheld respect. Clara hadn't read carefully enough. And when she finally did, when she realized the clause didn't apply to her, that's when she truly panicked. And the way she reacted the next morning, well, that's when the word revenge stopped being emotional and started becoming official. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. You know that kind of silence? The kind that feels staged? Yeah, that kind. Clara didn't come downstairs early, like she usually did. No blunder running. No cavenidors chatting loudly. No exaggerated cleaning routine. Just silence. I was already at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee, from my original porcelain mug, the one she had moved months ago. I'd put it back, right where it belonged. Daniel came down first. He looked like he hadn't slept. Morning, Mom, he said softly. Good morning, sweetheart. He hesitated. She's upset. I assumed, I replied calmly. He sat down across from me. I didn't realize how far it had gone, he admitted. The separate plates, the spraying. I thought it was just her being cautious. Caution doesn't humiliate, I said gently. Control does. He nodded slowly. Upstairs footsteps. Measured. Careful. Clara descended like she was walking into a courtroom. No es mal. No squeakneys. Just calculation. She stopped when she saw my mug. In its original spot. She noticed the silverware drawer slightly open. The labeled box gone. Ah. Yes. I had removed it. Completely. Thrown it away. She didn't comment. Not yet. Instead, she sat down. Across from me. No glaps. Interesting shift. Daniel cleared his throat. We need to talk. Clara folded her hands. Fine. He looked at her carefully. Did you really suggest assisted living? She exhaled dramatically. I suggested options. For who? He asked quietly. For someone who clearly isn't happy here, she snapped. I sipped my coffee. Calm. Clara, Daniel continued. This is Mom's house. Her jaw tightened. She keeps saying that. Because it's true, he replied. Ah. There it was. A line drawn. Clara's eyes flicked to me. Sharp. Cold. So what? She said. You're just going to let her control everything now. I set my cup down carefully. I am not controlling, I said softly. I am correcting. She leaned forward. You humiliated me with legal papers. I almost smiled. You humiliated me with disinfectant. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. Can we just reset? He asked. No more legal threats. No more comments about hygiene. We move forward. Clara was silent. I watched her carefully. She wasn't apologizing. She was recalculating. Finally, she spoke. Fine, she said flatly. No more separate dishes. No quorums. No sincerity. Just concession. Daniel looked relieved. Thank you. But I wasn't finished. Respect isn't temporary, I added calmly. It's consistent. She gave me a tight smile. Of course. Ah, but here's the thing about people like Clara. They don't forgive loss of power. They store it. And that afternoon, I caught her doing something that confirmed exactly who she was. I was in the hallway when I heard her on the phone again, whispering. She's manipulating everything. She even changed the trust. If something happens to her, Lily gets it, not us. Silence. Then. I need to talk to someone about legal angles. Maybe competency. Competency. Ah. There it was. The new strategy. If she couldn't push me out physically, she would try to declare me mentally unfit. I stood very still, listening. She's old. It wouldn't be hard to question it. That sentence? That was the moment sympathy turned into resolve. Not anger. Not shouting. Resolve. Because now it wasn't just humiliation. It was threat. Legal threat. She ended the call and turned. And saw me standing there. Our eyes locked. For a split second. Fear. Then it vanished. You shouldn't eavesdrop, she said coolly. You shouldn't plot, I replied calmly. Daniel came out of the bedroom. What's going on? Clara didn't miss a beat. Your mother was spying on my private call. I didn't even defend myself. I looked at Daniel and said one sentence. She's exploring ways to question my mental competency. The color drained from his face. Clara, is that true? She scoffed. Oh my God, I was venting. To a lawyer? I asked quietly. Silence. Daniel stared at her. You called a lawyer? She crossed her arms. I was asking questions. That's not illegal. No, I said softly. But it is revealing. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. This is getting out of control. No. Y correcta gently. It's becoming visible. Clara stood abruptly. I will not be villainized for protecting our future. Our future. Ah. There it was again. The house. The asset. The prize. And that's when I made a decision. Not emotional. Strategic. I walked to the small cabinet by the hallway. Opened it. Pulled out a folder. And handed it to Daniel. What's this? He asked. A copy of the updated trust, I said calmly. Read Clause 7. He scanned it. His eyes widened. Clara's confidence flickered. Clause 7 clearly stated, any attempt to legally challenge the competency of the property holder without medical basis would result in immediate disqualification from any future inheritance consideration. Ah. Yes. I planned ahead. Daniel looked up slowly. Mom. Clara went pale. You can't just. I can, I said softly. And I did. Silence filled the hallway. Heavy. Final. Because now she understood something terrifying. If she attacked my mind, she would lose everything. And for the first time since this began, Clara wasn't calculating. She was cornered. But cornered people? They don't always surrender. Sometimes, they explode. And the way she exploded that night? That's when Daniel finally saw the truth without my help. You ever see someone unravel in real time? Not loud at first. Not screaming. Just cracking. That night the house felt tight. Like the walls were listening. Daniel stayed quiet through dinner. Clara barely touched her food. No glabs. No separate plates. No desinfectante spray. But the tension? Thick enough to choke on. I washed my dish in the sink. The same sink as everyone else, dried it, and placed it back in the main cabinet. Deliberately. Calmly. Clara's jaw flexed. She didn't say a word. But I could see it. The humiliation she once handed me was now sitting in her lap. After dinner, Daniel went upstairs to take a call. That's when it happened. Clara turned to me. And whatever mask she had left, it slipped. You think you've won, she said quietly. I didn't flinch. This isn't a competition, I replied. Oh, it is, she snapped. You just don't like that I changed the dynamic in this house. The dynamic? I repeated softly. Yes, she said, stepping closer. Before I came here, this place revolved around you. Your rules. Your traditions. Your control. Control. Ah, interesting word choice. This was my home before it was yours, I said evenly. And it was supposed to become ours, she shot back. That's how this works. No. Y correcta calmly. That's how you assumed it would work. Her voice rose. You were supposed to step back. That's what mothers do. They let go. Daniel's footsteps paused upstairs. He could hear us. I raised my son, I said quietly. I did not surrender my existence. She laughed bitterly. You couldn't stand not being the center anymore. I looked at her steadily. You couldn't stand not owning what wasn't yours. That hit. Hard. Her face twisted. You manipulated him with guilt. No, I said softly. You manipulated him with fear. That's when she exploded. I had to, she shouted. The words hung in the air. Daniel came down halfway, frozen on the stairs. Clara didn't see him yet. I had to push you out, she continued. You were always here. Always watching. Always in the middle of everything. There it was. Not hygiene. Not germs. Territory. I was living in my own home, I said calmly. You were in my marriage, she yelled. Daniel stepped fully into the room. Clara. Her voice stopped. Slowly she turned. He had heard everything. You had to push her out? He asked quietly. She swallowed. That's not what I meant. You said you had to, he replied. Silence. The truth doesn't need decoration. It just stands there. Raw. Daniel looked at me. Then back at her. You made her feel dirty, he said. Clara's eyes filled. Not with regret, with frustration. You don't understand. I needed space. I needed control. Control. Again. Daniel shook his head slowly. So you tried to convince me she was unhygienic? She didn't answer. You tried to make her look unstable? Silence. You called a lawyer? Her composure cracked. I was protecting us. Daniel's voice hardened. From what? She had no answer. Because there was no threat. Only ambition. Only assumption. Only entitlement. The room went still. For months, I had carried humiliation quietly. For months, Daniel had dismissed small things as misunderstandings. But now, he saw the pattern. Not because I screamed. Not because I forced him. But because she revealed herself. Clara looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time, she didn't see a weak old woman. She saw someone who wasn't leaving. And that terrified her. Daniel took a deep breath. I think you should stay with your sister for a few days, he said quietly. Her head snapped toward him. What? We need space, he continued. This has gone too far. You're choosing her, she whispered. No, he said firmly. I'm choosing what's right. That sentence? It shifted the air completely. Clara grabbed her purse. You'll regret this, she said to him. Then she looked at me. This time there was no sarcasm. No squeakness. Just anger. This isn't over. I held her gaze calmly. It never should have started. She walked out. The door closed. And the house. It felt lighter. Daniel stood there, stunned. I'm sorry, Mom, he said finally. I walked to him. Placed my hand on his arm. I didn't want a battle, I said gently. I wanted dignity. He nodded. I see that now. Upstairs, a suitcase rolled across the floor. Drawers opened. Closet doors shut. She wasn't packing peacefully. She was packing wounded. And wounded pride? It doesn't fade quietly. Because even as she left that night, I knew something. Clara wasn't done. And when someone loses control of a house they thought would be theirs, they don't walk away gracefully. They try one last move. And the move she made the following week? That's when I stopped being patient and started being final. When Clara left that night with her suitcase, you'd think the storm had passed. No, that was just the eye of it. For 3 days, the house was calm, quiet, peaceful in a way it hadn't been in months. No disinfectant smell. No labeled boxes. No subtle glances when I touched something. Daniel moved around like a man waking up from a fog. I didn't see it, he kept saying. I didn't see how far it went. It's hard to see something when it doesn't target you, I told him gently. He nodded. And for the first time in a long time, we had dinner like we used to. Same table. Same dishes. No separación. It felt normal. But Clara? She wasn't silent. On the 4th day, I received a letter. Certified mail. Official envelope. My name printed clean across the front. I didn't panic. I didn't tremble. I opened it at the kitchen table. It was a notice. A concerned inquiry regarding my well-being. Filed anonymously. Requesting a wellness check and evaluation due to potential cognitive instability and escalating hostility. There it was. Her final move. She couldn't control the house. She couldn't control Daniel. So she tried to question my mind. Daniel walked in just as I finished reading. What is that? He asked. I handed it to him. I watched his face change. Shock, disbelief, then anger. She reported you? He said quietly. She tried. I replied calmly. He slammed the paper down. This is insane. No. Y correcta gently. It's desperate. 2 days later, a social worker came to the house. Professional. Polite. Neutral. I welcomed her in. Offered her tea. Used the main cups. She asked questions. Memory tests. Awareness checks. Basic evaluations. I answered everyone clearly. Dates. Names. Financial details. Legal structures. 30 years as a nurse teaches you something important. Stay composed under scrutiny. Daniel sat beside me the entire time. When the evaluation ended, the social worker smiled. Mrs. Ellis, she said warmly, you're perfectly competent. There's no concern here. I nodded. I'm aware. She glanced at Daniel sympathetically. Sometimes family conflicts get misinterpreted. Sometimes, I replied softly. After she left, Daniel paced the living room. She tried to declare you unstable, he muttered. She tried to create doubt. I corrected. His hands were shaking. I can't believe she'd go this far. I can, I said quietly. Because when someone's motivation is control, and control disappears, they escalate. That evening, Clara showed up unannounced. No suitcase this time. No sister. Just fury disguised as righteousness. You embarrassed me, she snapped the moment Daniel opened the door. Daniel didn't step aside. You filed a false report about my mother. She crossed her arms. I was concerned. Concerned, he echoed. Yes, she insisted. Look at what she's done. Legal threats, trust changes, emotional manipulation. I stepped forward. Calm. You called me unhygienic for months, I said evenly. You isolated me in my own home. You attempted to remove me. And when that failed, you questioned my sanity. She looked at me with something close to hatred. You forced me into a corner. No. Irreplaceably. You walked yourself there. Daniel's voice was firm now. You crossed a line. She laughed bitterly. So what? You're just going to let her win. Win. There it was again. She still saw this as a game. Daniel shook his head. This was never about winning. Clara looked between us. And for the first time, she realized something final. The house wasn't hers. The narrative wasn't hers. And Daniel? He wasn't hers to steer anymore either. So that's it, she asked quietly. Daniel's voice didn't waver. I think we need to separate. Silence. Real silence. Her face went pale. You're choosing her. No, he said calmly. I'm choosing peace. Ah, peace. The one thing she disrupted from the beginning. She looked at me then, searching for weakness, for guilt, for softness she could twist. She didn't find it. Because sympathy doesn't mean surrender. I hope it was worth it, she whispered. I held her gaze. Dignity always is. She left that night for good. No dramatic Islam. No screaming. Just the quiet sound of a door closing on entitlement. Daniel sat down slowly. I should have stopped it sooner. You stopped it now, I said gently. But the story wasn't over yet. Because separation is one thing. Consequences are another. And what happened when the legal paperwork for divorce began? That's when Clara realized something she never anticipated. Not only did she lose control of the house, she lost any claim to it forever. And the clause she ignored in the trust? That was about to become her final lesson. You know what's ironic? For months, Clara treated me like I was contaminated. Like I was something that needed to be managed, separated, sanitized. And in the end, she was the one removed. Cleanly, legally, permanently. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. When someone files a false competency concern against their own mother-in-law, judges don't look at that kindly. Especially when there's documented proof of manipulation. Daniel didn't fight dirty. He didn't scream. He didn't drag my name through anything. He simply told the truth. And the truth? It's powerful. Clara tried one last angle during mediation. She claimed she had contributed emotionally and financially to the household, and therefore deserved some security regarding the property. Ah, security. Interesting word for someone who tried to evict an old woman from her own home. Her attorney requested clarification of the trust. So we provided it. Clear, clean, unshakable. The house was never marital property. It was never transferred. It was never promised. It was protected. And then came the clause she ignored. The one she skimmed past when she thought she was still in control. Any individual who attempted to legally challenge my mental competence without verified medical cause would be permanently disqualified from any inheritance consideration, direct or indirect. That included future spousal claims tied to Daniel. Ah, yes. Strategic doesn't mean cruel. It means prepared. When her attorney explained that to her, I'm told she went very quiet. No outrage. No sarcasm. Just silence. Because for the first time, she understood something deeply uncomfortable. She had played a long game. And she lost it by underestimating the quiet woman in the corner. The divorce finalized 6 months later. No house claim. No asset leverage. No narrative advantage. Just paperwork. Daniel moved forward slowly. Therapy. Reflection. Distance. And me? I stayed exactly where I always was. In my kitchen. Using my dishes. Touching every single doorknob in my house. Ah. But here's the part people always ask me. Margaret, did you feel satisfied? No. Not satisfied. I felt steady. There's a difference. Revenge isn't screaming. It isn't humiliation. It isn't cruelty. Revenge, the kind that actually matters, is restoring balance. Clara tried to make me feel small. I stood taller. She tried to isolate me. I documented everything. She tried to label me unhygienic. I removed her access. She tried to question my mind. I reinforced my legacy. One evening months later, Lily sat at the kitchen table doing homework. Grandma, she asked softly, why did Mom say you were dirty? Children deserve truth, but they also deserve gentleness. I wasn't dirty, I told her calmly. Sometimes people say things when they're afraid of losing control. She thought about that. Are you mad at her? I smiled slightly. No, sweetheart. I'm just not available for disrespect. Ah, that's the lesson. Not anger. Not bitterness. Boundaries. Daniel joined us at the table. No tensión. No divided plates. No disinfectant spray waiting nearby. Just dinner. Normal. Peaceful. And before you think this is just about a house, let me say this clearly. It was never about property. It was about dignity. About what happens when someone slowly chips away at your place in your own life. About how humiliation can either shrink you or sharpen you. Clara called me unhygienic. She gave me separate utensils. She wiped surfaces after I touched them. She tried to send me to assisted living. She attempted to question my competency. And in the end, she packed her own suitcase. Because here's what I learned at 72 years old. You don't have to shout to win. You don't have to insult back. You don't have to destroy someone to defend yourself. You just have to know your worth. And protect it. So if you're listening to my story and someone has been making you feel small in your own space, let me tell you something. Clear and steady. You are not contamination. You are not disposable. You are not required to shrink for someone else's comfort. Stand up. Document everything. Know your power. And never let anyone label you in a house you built. Because sometimes, the quiet grandmother everyone underestimates is the strongest person in the room.